into our next session with Kunle. Kunle, are you here?
I'm here.
Awesome. How's it going?
I'm very well, thank you. Very. Okay, I can see myself now. Fantastic. I'm doing very well, Derek. I'm fine. It's an evening here. I'm fired up, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you for having me on here.
Of course. I'm going to plug, before we even get started, the 2X e-commerce site and podcast. Go subscribe. I'm going to put the link here in the chat for everybody. And also here, I'll put it on screen right here. Definitely a huge fan of listening to you as I drive across the country. I have 3 long trips planned over the next 45 days. So I have some episodes to catch up on, and it'll be just like nonstop, back to back Kunle in my ears. Yeah.
Fantastic. And let me know your favorite episode. So yeah, I'm always open to feedback.
For sure. Awesome. All right. What do we got planned today? What are we talking about?
All right, so what we're talking about is really like building resilient lifecycle, ad funnels or just funnels in general that are community oriented and really it's what 10 million plus e-commerce businesses actually do and use. For you to build anything meaningful in the direct to consumer e-commerce space, this playbook I'm about to show you will help. Essentially, it will help, and that's because I've just had access, just lucky enough to have access to the back ends of 10 million plus, several 10 million plus e-commerce businesses, and there is a pattern essentially, and I just want to share it.
Awesome. If you want to share your screen, I'll put it up here for everyone. I love this, and you're making me realize that I'm going to need to talk to you later about this pattern identification thing, and how it pertains to technology products specifically. So we have a future phone call that we'll need to do for sure.
So you should be able to see my screen, right?
I'm bringing it up here. Looks good. I'll go ahead and hop out of the way and let you get to it.
All right. So thank you, Derek, again. So I want to talk about building resilient lifecycle ad funnels and why the over-reliance on paid media at the top of funnel is a bad idea, and why you should just have a community-first funnel stack, top of funnel, in order to build anything substantial. So we're talking 10 million plus D2C e-commerce businesses. Now, why should you listen to me? This is a bit about me. I'm a podcast host. I've interviewed close to 250 founders, experts, practitioners in the e-commerce space since 2013. I'm an advisor to a few e-commerce businesses. I'm part of I'm the resident e-commerce expert at the Facebook journalism project. I've done a lot of CRO work there. I just started with a partner in acquisition entrepreneurship in e-commerce again. So that is me. I talk predominantly about acquisition, retention, and conversion rate optimization, essentially. So on today's talk, we're going to be talking about traffic diversification on the one hand, why CAC, customer acquisition cost, is rising, and how to just stack your funnel to just go against the tide in a way, and just build a bit of leverage just against the constant inflation in CAC. So let's go for it. Okay, so this is a tale of 2 brands. The first brand, I'm actually I have access to their analytics, so I'm not going to mention any names. But the first brand, if you notice, gets about 87% of its traffic from paid advertising. And its paid advertising channels are Google AdWords, Bing Ads, a bit of Facebook ads, but they discontinued it because it was not really working for them. And they did a lot of SEO. So in other words, they're chasing demand. So they're not necessarily building brand equity. They're just chasing traffic, search traffic that matches the products they sell. Now, the brand, on the other hand, at the bottom, on the other hand, have 79% of the traffic that's pretty much diversified. So they have a YouTube channel with close to 1 million, subscribers on the YouTube channel. They're very active on Facebook. They have an active Facebook group. They're active on Instagram. They have an audience essentially, and they have an email list of about 500,000. And they do a bit of Google ads. They do Facebook ads. They do criteria retargeting, and they do a lot of lifecycle marketing via Klaviyo. Now, which of them would you think is doing better? Basically, the one at the bottom is really doing well from a CAC perspective. That their CAC is less than $25, and their AOV is about 128. On the other hand, the brand at the top have a very high CAC with an AOV of close to about $100, and they're struggling essentially. They go in, they have their highs and they have their lows, and it's really a struggle. And that's because the brand at the top is very much reliant on paid, and the brand on the bottom is really reliant on an audience, just trying to hone in on an audience. So if you look at it, 58% of their traffic essentially is from organic, direct, and PPC. And the one at the top, 82% is on that. And let's look at some other brands. I know the owner of this brand is called Cheney. They've come on my podcast. And what they do, just without looking at any of the graphs here, what they do essentially is sell men's, just men's cosmetics, essentially, not really cosmetics, but just men's grooming products, really. So face washes, AM creams, PM creams, and the like. Now, what they do is they partnered up with a YouTuber who is the face of their brand. That YouTuber has about 800,000 subscribers, and then he's created a channel specifically to push their brand. And essentially, how that is translated to in the performance. Essentially, if you look at the bottom, they have 98% of traffic, social traffic coming from YouTube, as you can imagine. But if you look at the top at their channels, you'd see that 25% of all their traffic essentially is direct. Then there's a 39% which is organic, and then there's a 24% which is social, and then there's paid, which interestingly, paid search is about 8%. Where we're trying to get to is when you look at the brand name search, on for SEMrush, you find that almost 30% is branded, and then another 70% is non-branded. And they're about 20 million in revenue. So the push in their funnel essentially is YouTube, top of the funnel, and it allows for performance to be a lot cheaper, because what they're doing essentially is driving a ton of traffic through to their website via building their brand, up front, and then off the back of that, they're essentially just retargeting most of the time with all of their performance or paid advertising. Now, this is Gymshark. A lot of you would know them. They're a household name. They're about almost $250 dollars in revenue. And if you look at their brand name search, it's an 80-20 in essence. So 80% of all traffic via search come through that. 46% you're seeing, or 47% you see in the graph, just search for Gymshark. And that's because they have a very influencer-led approach towards just generating demand and generating awareness at the front of all of their marketing activities. So if you have a look again at the graphs there, the direct is about 33%, and organic, which is 46%, really is branded search. And when you look at social, you'd see again lots of YouTube channels. If you just type out Gymshark on YouTube, you find thousands of videos on YouTube. Same thing with Facebook. Instagram is about 10%, and that you could see that nice spread with social, despite social just accounting for about 5% of traffic. What happens is people get to know about them on social and just type out their brand name, either as search in Google or directly to their browsers to gymshark.com. And that's why you see those two spikes with direct and organic. It's very important to get to understand these concepts. This is movement watches. They're close to $100 million, dollars in revenue, and they're acquired by, I think it was Movado. And again, they're very, very influencer-led, Instagram, YouTube. I think they started to do a bit of TikTok. And you'd see again that the major source of traffic from them, for them, is organic search. But when you dig deeper into organic search by SEMrush, you find again that 87% of all their organic search is branded, right? That is mind-blowing. So essentially, people know about them and they're going to their website or going to Google to just type out their brand name, and they just get onto the website. And then there's another 33%, which is direct. What I'm trying to get to is these brands are building a lot of awareness via social or via above the line marketing. And that is translating essentially to either direct traffic, or it's translating essentially to people just search brand name search on Google. The last but one is Fashion Nova, huge household name, disruptors in the D2C space, fast fashion, whatever you think about fast fashion. But there, if you look again, two top traffic sources, one's direct, 46%, and the other is 37%, which is from organic. And if you look at their organic breakdown, you'd find 75% is branded, 25% is non-branded. So you start to see a pattern, in all of this. These are like social first brands, essentially. And the last one, which really trips me, is Glamnetic. Glamnetic went from 0 to $50 million in revenue in 1 year. One freaking year. It's mind-blowing. And again, if you break it down and you look at their direct traffic, 36%, search 34%. Let's delve into what search is. 80% of their search of the 34% is branded. Again, we see a pattern. These are social. Actually, the founder is an influencer essentially, and she decided to go into commerce. I think right now, the best people to go into commerce right now are influencers. So she just migrated her audience, from Instagram and wherever she was active, to be very focused on supporting her, obviously with very, very good products. They sell lashes. And they've grown quite significant. It's mind-blowing to see business go from 0 to 50 million in 1 year. I want to get her on my podcast, by the way, but I hope this gives you a pattern to kind of understand that it is really about audience and not necessarily traffic, getting the attention of audiences and being very emotive, upfront. So there's that brand recall, and people with a brand recall and brand uplift. With a brand recall, essentially people, just search for your brand, and there's just this high intent to want to purchase from you. So it's really building those upfront, cues at the, really, really at the start of the process. Now, I wrote a blog post back in 2013 about, why SEO would not grow your fashion e-commerce business. And that's because I was an SEO for a few years, and it was kind of like, I got involved in SEO, and I did incredible things for some businesses, and then it got to a point in time when I got into e-commerce, and I doubled traffic, and this was like significant numbers. We're talking about millions of visitors a year. We pretty much helped this company double traffic, organic traffic. We used a lot of content marketing strategies, but the problem was revenue only dropped by about 30% year on year. And my promise was if we double traffic, we'll double revenue, and that's what got everybody really excited. And it really got me thinking and looking more into data and saying, okay, there are many other cues that actually drive essentially sales, which is what everybody is really and sustainable sales at that. which is where the focus really is, that you always want to get a return on your investment. And so I put this article together. You could check it out. And I talked about like maxi dresses and the fact that, you could be an authority in maxi dresses on social media, and, and just essentially, on essentially just sell a lot more than anyone who's ranking for maxi dresses, on social. I just talked essentially about not chasing generic search volume and really looking at brand name search, which I found really interesting anyway. So these are some of the limitations. If you look at maxi dresses, for instance, you'd notice that most of the brands that rank there are really like the national brands, really listed on there. The national brands essentially, and these are like their category pages, and it really be difficult as a small D2C, agile D2C business to want to rank. In fact, you don't really want to chase search traffic at the start of your D2C journey. It's more a mature thing to do longer term. What you want to do is really chase attention, real people, become an authority with maxi dresses, work with influencers who talk about, maxi dresses, talk about your story, talk about why you are an authority in maxi dresses, rather than trying to, just chase maxi dresses, as a term. And you'd find that, with all these other brands, the focus, most of them are 70% brand name search and then 30% generic. And so really there is actually even a limitation in terms of like search volume, for like generic search terms. Okay, so let's talk about CAC, payback period, and you're just acquiring first-time customers. Essentially, what is CAC? It's really your, sales and marketing costs, split by the number of new customers that you acquired. And the trend with CAC is it's been on the rise. And I like the work put together with RevealBot. If you look at what RevealBot did in like here, which is, we looked at revenue and at CPM rates on Facebook in April 2020. This is a very, very good tool, by the way. Just check out RevealBot, CPM Inflation. And basically, if you're to compare conversion objective campaigns, right, on average on Facebook, this time last year, April 2020, to this year, CPMs have gone up by 70%. It's incredible. So if you then do the math to like CPC, you'd see that CPC is going up. So if you look at this graph here, which is CPC in 2020, January started out with at 70 cents, and then by September, not even Q3, it was already $1.14 cents. So CPC and CPM are on the rise, and how do you sort of go against the tide? Now, this is an example where, okay, you have an AOV of about $100, and your CAC is your cost to acquire a new customer is about $50. It costs you about $15 for tax and shipping, and then your cost of goods about $30. Your variable cost, for running the business, about $10. You're on a loss of about $5 for that first purchase. Now, the key thing essentially is that how do you get that second purchase? Because if you get a second purchase via like email or SMS marketing, your profitability straight up is about $50. Let's say you have your variable cost of still, $10, your cost of goods still $30, your tax and shipping $15. You still start to make a profit from that second purchase. Now, this is very, very top level stuff, but it's really trying to, the variable here besides your variable cost is your CAC. How can you bring that CAC down longer term? And that's what I wanted to address in this talk. Now, another thing to bear in mind is, as much as we're having like CPM inflation in digital, CPM is actually going down in offline, so in outdoor magazines, and you can understand because distribution is becoming challenging. But there is an arbitrage opportunity longer term. You look at brands like Brooklinen in the early days, where they were advertising in the New York subway. So they were using display. They were really focused on the New York industry initially before they went national, and they were using display to tell their story, to give value. And then they were focusing their performance on just New York at the time. And when they started to see, really good CAC, they were able to scale further. So there's an arbitrage opportunity. It's worth exploring, just offline. But when you do offline, try and hone in to geos, to specific geos. I remember somebody who came on my podcast to talk about like television advertising, and he was talking about the fact that don't go national, go very, very specific, and you just choose the timing in terms of like TV advertising. The D2C companies can still do TV advertising. So in regards to like, profitable growth levers, what you want to do is you definitely want to control your AOV for CAC. You want to increase the frequency if possible in terms of like, buyer frequency. And you just have to accept that most first time purchases are not, profitable, and you need to put in, processes in place towards, generating that second purchase as quickly as you possibly can. So what does a social advertising focused, funnel look like? This is like the old way of doing things, where people buy traffic on Facebook, based on interest, based on LLAs, based on their custom audiences, and they essentially exclude, traffic. And what they do is they then, they're able to generate like a warm, target audience where they start to, run their mid of funnel, advert for retargeting. And then at the bottom of the funnel, they actually, start to trigger purchases. Obviously, there's a lot of retargeting ads, both mid funnel and bottom of funnel. And what they do eventually is, go for lifecycle marketing, which would automate like email flows. This is an old way, and it's really dependent on the variables as I discussed initially, which are your CPMs, your cost per thousand impressions, and your cost per click. Now, if those variables you cannot control, and so you find a lot of variability, especially in the low end of of the market. A lot of people coming onto forums complaining about their customer acquisition cost, or their CPMs, or Facebook not behaving today, and all of that stuff. And it's a thing. And so the way they mitigate it really is lifecycle marketing by using email and SMS marketing to re-engage customers. But there's a better way of doing this. The second way, the better way of doing this, I'll talk about it, but this is what it really looks like in terms of like your traditional D2C 1.0 a marketing mix or media mix. So on the one hand, you have paid media, which is like social advertising, and on the other hand, you have email, and then at the bottom you have really organic social engagement, and you just try and merge everything all up to minimize CAC. But again, you're going against the tide with CPM, which is quite unpredictable, as you've seen in previous slides, and CPC. Now, the ideal media mix essentially is putting earned media first. Now, what do I mean by earned media? I mean actually building and establishing a community, first. Really, really building an engaged community. Having a compelling brand story, talking a lot about your products, which would be through influencer seeding, just having emotive top of funnel, and user generated content and influencer generated content, and ensuring that people know about your brand. So where your North Star of your brand essentially is brand name search, brand recall, where you more and more people, you're tracking more and more people searching for your brand, because you're seeding, what you sell and your brand story all over, whether it's through podcast, whether it's through influencers. You seed, a lot of, your brand name, out there. Now, when you do that as a number one, then you support it with paid, right? Now that you're organically, and with the help of like community members, if you look at like influencers as community members, when you're recruiting, influencers, you're looking at them as more or less chiefs. If you look at the community as leads in your community who have like sub audiences, you're trying to consolidate. So if you look at that from that perspective, the number of impressions of your brand through these influencers and through all of your content marketing efforts would result to lower CPM and lower CPC, actually higher click-through rates, because more and more people organically know about your brand, and when they see your engaging ads on social, they're more likely to respond because they've seen and they know what you're about. So you're really using that awareness which you're building up front to generate lower CPC and CPM, through paid media. And at the bottom, obviously, which is super, super important, is email marketing and SMS marketing, which would, ensure that you're getting the retention bits going, and your subsequent purchase frequency in the mix. So this is what it looks like from a lifecycle marketing standpoint. So at the top of the funnel, you're driving traffic through to your website, via just via brand, via brand. And then you're creating content which really drives top of funnel traffic to establish long-term relationships with content creators and influencers. And then you stack your normal, social ad focused funnel below the fold. So everything kind of works down there. Now, what you want to do, or what the end goal is really building community. And once you build community at the bottom, which is number 5, it triggers repurchases. So what I've done here is kind of like explain the top of the funnel, the proper top of the funnel here. You have brand building, which really is all about garnering attention and creating shareable content. A lot of people say, how do I build community? Well, you have to, community really hinges on the content you create up front. And the content you create could be user generated or influencer generated, and it could be in-house generated. When I mean in-house generated, it could be like you're focusing on a YouTube channel and really building that out in order to get that attention. And at the end of the day, if you're trying to sell your business, because I'm now involved in acquisition of e-commerce businesses, you're finding that that's an asset in itself, which just gives you a lot more value, longer term, if you ever wanted to exit. But in order to actually, even if you look at what is ahead of you in terms of like reducing your CPM and your CAC, you have to create content that really resonates with people, that gets them to share your content, especially in the age of TikTok, where your following on TikTok does not necessarily dictate the reach of your content. TikTok's algorithm works differently as compared to all of the platforms, like Facebook or Instagram. If your content works with their sample group, they would expose it to more and more and more people. So you could have someone with 1,000 followers getting 1 million, impressions, essentially 1 million video plays on TikTok. So essentially, what you want to do is really seed your story, seed your products. If you're really going direct response, seed the quality of your products, seed your product experience, your customer experience through influencers, through your channels that you own, in order to make ads cheaper, bottom of funnel. And so the suggestions I have here are like influencer-led brand. So where you have an army of influencers, they don't necessarily need to be, big influencers. They could be micro influencers, so long as they align with your niche. And then really it's building a community around content you create and what they create. And just focusing on, just above, the line marketing, essentially, PR, advertising. Obviously, don't overspend, but just make sure that when there's a PR opportunity, seize it. If you can create a PR opportunity, make it, so that essentially more people are aware of what you sell. And when they come across your ads, when you're targeting, when your ads people are targeting, I'd say the probability of success, just maximizes because they've seen and know about the customer experience and your product, up front. So what does the mid funnel look like? Essentially, it's advertising, really. It is really advertising. It's video ads, on whichever platform. Facebook, you'd find would be the mothership most of the time, but there are many options. Beyond Facebook, there's YouTube. You could explore, Snapchat, TikTok, what have you. But basically, the mid funnel, your new mid funnel, should be, advertising. And then you could layer in, display and retargeting. And the one thing you must do is, micro conversions of email. So when you're starting to generate traffic through to your website, you should have a way of capturing email and mobile phone data, so you could put them through to your welcome series for pre-purchase. Make sure that you have a lot of very structured pre-purchase email flows that just have the objective to converting them to first-time customers. But really, it's getting 6-7 touch points prior to that initial purchase, especially if your AOV is on the high side, is over $100. You really want to get as many touch points as possible. And then after that, really, it's lifecycle marketing. I cannot emphasize the importance of email enough. And just build in, a two-way stream, communication. And if you can, manage a Facebook group, if you can manage that, one-to-many, where all of your or a lot of your followers or customers can interact with other customers. Obviously, there are many nuances to it in terms of issues. That's why you need to deliver a great customer experience. But by all means, do that. But it is really down to lifecycle marketing. This is where the long-term value is going to be had. And a lot of people don't work on like direct mail, product inserts in the unboxing experience. All those extra little bits of detail should be addressed. Obviously, outside of the scope of this this talk. But at the end of the day, you have a journey, right? If you're starting out to hit 1 million, you want to get to 10 million and then 100 million. If you're in 1 million, most of the time, most brands that are doing 1 million in revenue are predominantly using paid advertising, paid acquisition, where they're just essentially renting. In my opinion, they're essentially renting. When you start to build a voice in the market, through influencers, and you start to own a message, you become a content creator as a brand, and you also use content creators to tell your story, or to tell people more about your product. You start to move towards that 10 million, especially when you layer in retention, and then you start to become an owner, because you're essentially you have your own list, and you're actually talking to your customers. And then finally, that journey from 10 to 100 million really is becoming a movement, creating influence, influencing the market, essentially, being a market leader in voice and with community, honing in, and that's what you see in those examples in terms of like in terms of what they're doing. So they actually have a voice in their markets. They've carved out a niche in their markets. I mean, just to finalize, what does a marketing stack look like for a profitable 10 million plus business? At the bottom of the funnel, you should have like a unique product, moat product that has a distinct competitive advantage in the market, whether it's in design, whether it's in function, whether it's in emotions. It must be distinct. The other is the next step is mass influencer product seeding. So using an army of influencers on a consistent basis, you need to systematize this. There's a great training program run by Taylor Legace from Kinship, Kynship. They offer like training on how to go about mass influencer seeding. You want to get it out there as much as possible, get the word about your product as much as possible to as many people as possible. After that, you then hone in on performance marketing. So now that it's in the hands, now that many people know about your brand, you have a competitive advantage with performance marketing. And then the next thing is content marketing. So publishing relevant content, to build a community. When you publish content, essentially, not many people say this, you're building a community because you're attracting, your message is attracting a certain, segment in the market, certain, type of person, psychographic, essentially, especially when you're writing content of particular, persona of people, you're building community. So with all of that, obviously you're collecting emails as all of this is happening. You're acquiring followers on your social media. You're creating content, whether it's a YouTube channel, whether it's a blog post, whether it's an image, you're creating content. And then you're consistently launching products. You're not just a one product D2C brand. You're being innovative, launching new products that connect with the previous product. So people who likely, bought your first product are going to buy, this product. You're creating a connection, a library, a family of products, essentially. And then you hone in on lifecycle marketing, one-to-one, personalized, communication. And then the most important thing is you're building an engaged community. So if you say, for instance, you want to run a conference or something, how many people will attend? How many people actually will buy your gear? And if you're selling swag on your website, how many people would actually say, I love this brand so much, I will buy their swag. So essentially, these are the pillars to sustainably grow. I'm not talking about buying traffic on Facebook and saying, hey, I generated $1 million. Can you do it again? I'm seeing in the acquisition space a lot of businesses which we just give a pass, where they grow to, $1 million in revenue, and then they come down and they can never replicate it for months, and they want to sell their business. That's not a business. That was lucky. That was one chance, and if it's not sustained, it's not success. So if you put these pillars in, over time, it's a lot of work. Over time, you will build a sustainable life cycle led marketing that's focused on building community. And that, my friends, is where I would end it.
Kunle, that was amazing. I love it. I love that marketing stack. And I already said I wanted to talk a little bit later, but I can even tell you about tools that kind of line up with this. So you've got like the strategies, and then we can like think about how you insert the tools to follow the strategies, and then together that's how revenue is really made. So brilliant. Absolutely love it. We are over time. So show us that Calendly link one more time, and I'm going to make sure and share that with everybody. When would somebody want to book a time with you? Give me the plug.
So anytime. So what I do is I work with two kinds of businesses. I work with businesses looking for a roadmap towards a particular goal, revenue goal. Whether it's the 1 million mark or whether it's 10 million mark, and the strategies are different, but everything utilizes the stack for sustained growth. I have limited availability because I'm doing so many things, as you can imagine. But feel free to get in there. I think I have like free 20-minute, free 20-minute sessions on there. But beyond that, it's really paid and a one-off thing. And then I work with some 10 million plus businesses as an advisor. They just call me, run ideas. Like, for instance, there's one of them who is about to launch a membership layer to their website. So they're selling really well. COVID was really good to them, but what they were trying to do is, get memberships. I was consulting with them on how to go about it, how to build a sales page and all of that. But I'm kind of like on a retainer with them, and so that's how I work anyway. But we do a lot of things.
I love it. That's awesome. So if you want to book a call with Kunle or use him for advising, especially on new product launches or fine-tuning that marketing stack, check out the link somewhere around here. Kunle, we've got to move right into the next session. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a good night.
You too.